Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's Committee of Adjustment hearing is being held by video conference and live streaming video on the town's live stream webpage at oakville.ca. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act. Please keep in mind the intent of this process is to review the application that is before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for a deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the applicant or authorized agent must contact the Secretary Treasurer to schedule a new hearing date. In order to conduct an effective and efficient hearing, we have adopted the following process. If you are watching the live stream of this hearing on oakville.ca and if you wish to speak to an item on the agenda, you can call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. The phone number is also posted on your screen below the live stream at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call. When you call in, staff will ask your name, item number that you wish to address, and your phone number. Further instructions will be provided for you to call back to join the video conference. And when the chair asks for or polls for interested parties, press *6 to unmute yourself. The applicant or agent will be given the opportunity to briefly explain to the committee the basis of the application and answer any questions that may arise. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for a presentation. You will need to state your full name and address for the record, and any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All delegations must also state their full name and address for the record. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided to make a presentation. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair, and any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. The applicant or agent will then be provided with a further 5 minutes to respond to the comments made by interested parties and answer any questions from the committee members. If the applicant or agent has concerns found in staff report, particularly with proposed conditions, this will be the opportunity to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for a decision, and this will mark the end of all discussion. Any person desiring a notice of decision for an application must provide a written request, preferably through email, to the Secretary Treasurer. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variance and 15 for consent applications to the applicant and agent and any other person who has filed a written request for such notice. The last date to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal will be noted on the decision. Only the applicant, specified persons, or public bodies may appeal the committee's decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. In November of 2022, Bill 23 legislation for the More Homes Built Faster Act amended the Planning Act to remove appeal rights for members of the public. If no appeal is received within the prescribed timeframe, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary Treasurer will then notify the applicant and anyone who received a copy of the decision through written correspondence. People participating in this hearing are to be courteous to and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and any other person participating in this electronic hearing. Tonight's electronic hearing is being video recorded and available for future viewing at oakville.ca. We have no regrets this evening. And do I have any declarations of pecuniary interests? Okay, I see none. Thank you. Madam Secretary Treasurer, I'll be taking requests for withdrawals. Anyone who is in attendance today who is wishing to withdraw or defer an application, please raise your hand.
I've moved Christine Deng into the meeting.
Perfect.
Good evening. My name is Christine Deng. I would like to request a deferral for the application CAV A0672023 458 Sanford Place to address the staff comments that we received.
Very well, thank you. All those in support of a deferral? Okay. The application, all those opposed? Okay, Mr. Talowski's feed is frozen. Okay, very well. So everyone is in support of the deferral? Okay, so the application has been deferred. You'll see the Secretary Treasurer at your earliest convenience.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I've moved Mark Condello into the meeting.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. Mark Condello, Clenchner and Associates here on behalf of the owners of 1084 Argyle Drive, file number CAV A0732023. We're here requesting a deferral of the application to allow the applicant some time to continue dialogue with staff to try to address their concerns they identified in their staff report, some of the minor variances.
Sorry, can you repeat the number of your application?
That is file number CAV A0732023 for 1084 Argyle Drive.
Okay, I have you here. Okay.
Yep.
All those in support of a deferral to allow the applicant to work with staff? Okay, the application has been deferred, none opposed. You'll see the Secretary Treasurer at your earliest convenience.
Thank you.
Anyone else, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
I don't see anybody else with their hand raised at this time for deferrals or any other requests of the chair. Okay, we should be able to proceed. I don't see anybody else with their hand raised.
Okay, very well. So the first item on our agenda will be CAV 068 of 2023 at 258 Elton Park Road. Again, that's CAV 068 of 2023 at 258 Elton Park Road. I do have a note that I have 2 letters of support on hand. And if you're interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095. Who is the agent for this application?
I've moved Terry Martino into the meeting.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
We can now, Mr. Martino, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Well, good evening. My name is Terry Martino. I'm with Gren White's Architect and Associates, 341 Kerr Street in Oakville, and we are the agent for the owners of 258 Elton Park Road. If you'd like, I can present a brief presentation to the committee. The proposal is to demolish the existing dwelling and construct a new 2-story dwelling on the property. The proposal seeks for the committee tonight 6 minor variances and associated with the design. The lot is extremely large. It's 25 by 0.8 meters wide by 62 meters, or over 203 feet deep. It's well treed with hedges on both the north and side property lines. You can see indicated green on the site plan. The design of the new dwelling uses the depth of the lot, similar to the adjacent property south at 250 Elton Park, the property to the right on the drawing. The intention of the design is to create a 1.5-story look to the dwelling from the street, and to reduce the massing in the side yards by sloping the roofs down to a single story in height at both the north and the south property line. The proposed dwelling, the proposal meets the height, front and side yard setbacks, as well as the rear yard setback. The proposed coverage of the proposed dwelling is 3% under what is permitted by the zoning bylaw. By using this sort of strategy of maximizing the lot depth, it allows us to internalize the garage, which you can see lightly shaded on the site plan. And this keeps a single driveway in its historical location. The existing driveway is located there, and maximizes the front yard landscape. Some of the things that arise from this strategy, number one is the length of the dwelling. That is subject of variance number 5. I believe the staff's report is well written in that the intent of regulating the length of dwelling is to ensure that appropriate amenity rear yard space is provided. In this case, the rear yard setback to the proposed dwelling is 24 meters, over twice what's permitted by the zoning bylaw at 10.5. Any concerns with respect to privacy and overlook into the rear yards are mitigated by the hedges previously mentioned on both the north and the south side, as well as rear yard projection. The property is mostly due to this, located on the south side of the property. In this way, we believe that there are no adverse impacts on the adjacent properties, and one of the letters of support, in fact, noted by the chair, is from the adjacent property to the south at 250 Elton Park. Second issue, which is variance number 3 that comes up from the strategy of maximizing the length of the dwelling, or length of the lot rather, is the internal garage. And so variance number 3 seeks a increased driveway width. Again, the intention of this is to maximize, or at least bylaw and limiting the driveway width to maximize front yard landscaping. In this case, that driveway that we're talking about is in front of the 2-car garage. It's internal to the site, and the only thing visible to the street is a single width driveway in its historical location. As noted in the staff report, variance number 2 is to permit a second garage. Under the zoning bylaw, the carport or porte cochere is considered a garage. So that's where before the committee is seeking an additional garage for 2. Furthermore, the size of the garage, as indicated in variance number 4, is actually the total of the internal 2-car garage plus the carport plus the storage as indicated there in the carport. I can tell you that in consultation with their neighbors, my clients have received 2 letters of support, which is included in your package tonight. As previously mentioned, including the neighbor most impacted to the south of the property at 250 Elton Park. Finally, we have reviewed staff's comments, total comments, to all of the variances, and concur with the conclusion on page 5 that the application as submitted satisfies the 4 tests under the Planning Act and is consistent with the guidelines for development, stable neighborhood residential communities. The variances are minor in nature. They meet the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, considered good development for the subject property. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martino. Are there any questions of Mr. Martino at this time or items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Madam Secretary Treasurer, has anyone called with interest to speak to this application?
There's no one at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, very well. Then we'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle. You're muted. We can't hear you.
We'll try again. How are we now?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit, having reviewed the materials, including the written staff report, having heard the presentation from Mr. Martino, I'm satisfied that the requested variances conform to the 4 tests of the Act, and I'll put forward a motion of approval subject to 2 conditions. Those conditions being that the dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated March 15th, 2023, and that the approval expires within 2 years of the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued. I would note that there were no members of the public present, but 2 letters of support provided with respect to this.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. None opposed. Thank you, Mr. Martino. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, have a great evening.
Application CAV 069 of 2023 at 1428 Rebecca Street. Again, it's application CV 069 of 2023 at 28 Rebecca Street. If you're interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions. I have 2 emails of opposition to be noted, Mike Kosmala and Patricia Force. Who is the agent for this application?
If you're interested in this application, can you please raise your hand so that I can move you into the meeting? I've moved the agent into the meeting, Curtis Van Keulen.
Yes.
Good
Good
evening, Madam
evening.
Chair, members of the committee.
Good evening. Mr. Van Keulen, before we start, I just want to direct your attention that there were some variances that were missed. Do you still want to continue, or would you prefer to request a deferral to deal with those issues?
Yes, so we read the staff's comments and we looked at those. They're considering some coverage numbers that are coming from a garage shed that will be removed. And then the garage, which we have already on updated plans, pushed back to avoid the variance. The only variance we're looking for is the front yard setback. So we wish to continue. Thank you.
Very well. Okay, so we will go ahead and continue. Have you also seen the comments from your neighbors? I assume that that's because of these variances.
Yes, I have read the 2 emails of opposition that came through, mainly in relation to the removal of trees in the front yard. There is 1 larger tree that will be removed under the scope of this application. However, under the current tree replacement bylaw, we are replacing it with 3 trees in the front yard as per forestry standards.
Okay, very well. So I'll let you do your presentation and then we'll take any questions from interested parties. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So to fully address that, again, my name is Curtis Van Keulen from Hughes Design Studio. We're seeking 1 minor variance from the committee this evening with regards to a front yard setback. The current dwelling is located very far back from the main Rebecca Street. It is almost beyond middle of the lot. So we're wishing to push it forward a little bit and obviously enlarge the footprint up to the bylaw maximum lot coverage. We're not exceeding the lot coverage. We double checked all our numbers after reviewing staff comments, and it is just the existing shed that is contributing to staff comments, and that will be removed, and that'll be further clarified on our building permit application. Also addressing that driveway concern with regards to the garage setback. We did an investigation on that and further revised that to comply to the bylaws as well. So that's pushed back to comply. So we're only seeking the front yard setback, which really just has to do with the reconstruction of a new dwelling 1 meter or more in front of the existing dwelling. And in this case, to align it a little bit more in line with the streetscape along Rebecca, we've proposed it at as per the drawings submitted. So we've reviewed everything in terms of the 2 letters that were submitted. And again, has to do with the trees. There were some comments regarding drainage. Oakville has an extensive drainage approval, stormwater management approval, and overall just lot drainage approval process. So we're going to go through that for the application process for the minor or for the building permit application. So we have no doubt that our engineers will make sure that there are no implications on the neighboring properties with regard to drainage. So all that being said, we feel this application meets the 4 tests, and I'll be happy to answer any further questions the committee might have. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Van Kulen. Any questions of the applicant's agent at this time? Go ahead, Mr. Dickey. You have to unmute yourself.
I just wanted to ask the planner, just to get some clarification on the trees. The site plan seems to show 3 trees in the front yard. Are those maintaining 3 existing trees, or are those the 3 new trees that you mentioned before?
I believe that's
So-
a question for Mr. Van Kulen.
Yes, I apologize. So through you, Madam Chair, there are a total of 4 trees, I guess, technically in the current front yard. There are 3 smaller spruce right up against the front of the dwelling, which to me are probably a little bit of an overgrown hedge from an older planting date. Those are very small in diameter in terms of trunk size, but taller in height because of their nature as a spruce tree. So those will be removed right up against the house. But the larger mature tree that is being removed in the front yard is a taller spruce tree as well. And that one is sort of smack dab in the middle of the front yard, right where the existing driveway sort of curves around. So that one's going to be removed. But there are 3 larger trees, 2 of which are on the town's property, and 1 of which is very close to Rebecca. And those 3 large trees will be retained. And then in addition to those, there are 3 additional replacement trees.
Mr. Van Kulen, with your application package, they're numbered. Can you perhaps just, there's 16, 15, and 14. Those are the ones that you're retaining, and the ones that are being removed are 11 and 12?
I'm just pulling that up. Yeah, the site plan shows replacement trees are 1, 2, and 3. Those are smaller in size. And then there are existing tree 1, 3, and 4 that are going to be remained. 2 is to be removed. You mentioned some tree numbers in the 11.
No, I think I was looking backwards. I was looking in the back versus the front.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so
Yeah.
everything at the back, 11, 12, 14, 15, 17, 16, 19, 18, all that's to remain.
Okay, so it's just the ones in the front.
Yeah, it's just a large one, tree number 2 in the front. And then there's 6, 7, and 5, 7. Yeah, 5, 6, and 7 which are smaller trees in diameter, a little bit taller than the existing house, right up against the existing house.
Okay, I see those. Thank you.
You're very
Does
welcome.
that help you, Mr. Dickey, as well?
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair.
All right, any other questions or items of clarification? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, having a hard time with my mute tonight.
okay.
Mr. Van Keulen, would you be kind enough, perhaps using the site plan on the presentation that was shown to us, just show us what the modifications are to comply with the exterior side yard setback for the garage?
Oh, yes, certainly. So if staff would refer to the drawing. I'm just trying to pull up presentation here. Tend to watch. So if staff would zoom in on the driveway, the proposed driveway, which is which is actually on Savannah Gate. There we go. Perfect. So currently there's 5.08 meters from the property line to the face of the garage. And we're going to slightly shift 0.62 of a meter to meet the 5.8 or 5.7, I think it was, the setback that's required there. So we're going to shift the garage slightly inward, reducing a little bit of the internal garage dimension as well as the internal space inside the house. So basically just enlarging this exterior side yard setback to meet and comply with the zoning bylaws.
Madam Chair, if I may continue.
Yes, go ahead.
So in other words, the projection, if you will, or undulation of the of that exterior facade of the building will be slightly less by, approximately 0.6 of a meter. So you'll basically be pulling the face of the garage inward, so there will be less jogging of the facade. Okay.
Correct. Yes. Thank you.
And this has been provided to staff, and have staff reviewed it and commented back to you at this point?
Not at this point, but I'm very confident we're going to be able to comply to the zoning bylaws, and there's going to be very minimal effect on the exterior massing of the building. The jog that's currently there is well over, I think it's closer to a full meter, maybe 1.2 meters or so. So we're still going to have the variation in the massing on that's exterior side yard elevation. The overall elevations of the building itself won't be affected too much at all, other than the rear elevation being slightly narrowed from exterior side to exterior side, left to right.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Mr. Tlowski had his hand up as well, and I think Ms. Yu also had a question. So go ahead, Mr. Tlowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Hardcastle took the words out of my mouth, so
Super.
I'm satisfied now. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Yu, did you have any further items of clarifications that you were seeking?
No, I'm afraid the applicant just answered the question.
Very well. Great. At this time, has anyone called or raised their hand to speak to the application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
I've moved Mike Kosmala, and there's also a Stewart on the phone that are in the meeting, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Hi, it's Stuart Zacharias.
Hello, Mr. Stewart.
Hi, so my wife and I, we live immediately
Sorry. Can I please get his full name and address for the record, please?
Yes, first name Stuart, S-T-U-A-R-T,
A-R-T. Last name Zacharias, Z-A-C-H-A-R-I-A-S.
And the address?
1427 Willow Down Road.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so my wife and I live immediately adjacent to the south of this property, and we simply wanted to indicate to the committee that we support the application.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zacharias. If there's
you.
nothing further, who else would like to speak to the committee?
Mike Cosmala is in the meeting.
Good evening, Mr. Kuzmal. Can you state your full address for the record, please?
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Mike Kosmala. I live at 1422 Rebecca Street.
Thank
Okay,
you.
go ahead, sir.
My concern is with the water table in these locations. I would like to find out if there was any study done on that property. Basically, my understanding is, let's say if the study hasn't been done and hasn't been indicated how low is the water table, basically they have to create the whole elevation of the proposal on that property, right? So that's gonna give you the indication how high we can go and how tall it's gonna be. My concern is about my property. If they will go so low with water table, that's gonna, I think, in a way, flood my backyard and all the rest of the neighbors. When I spoke with my neighbors across the area, most of those big houses which has been built lately, they have such a weak system to eliminate the water on the property. So basically, everybody is complaining of the sump pump. It's not pumping the water to swale system properly, and everybody's getting flooded. Okay.
Are those all your concerns? Because once I've taken down all your concerns, I will give Mr. Van Keulen a chance to respond to all your concerns. So this is your time to address them all.
I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, very well. We'll get you that
Yes,
information. Okay, just hang tight for a second. Anyone else, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
I see no one at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay. Mr. Van Keulen?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, to address Mike Cosmela's concerns. And I would also like to express my gratitude to Stuart to phoning in. I really appreciate that. So to address Mr. Cosmela's comments, so to start off, the proposed grading plan that we have prepared by a civil engineer will be submitted for extensive review by the town's lot grading department. I'm just reviewing it now in front of me here, and I'm seeing a lot of grade points on his property that is actually higher than the property that we are developing. Most of the slope is actually draining towards Savannah Gate from essentially east to west. So the direction of a lot of the slopage on the property is actually away from Mr. Cosmela's property, from what I'm seeing on the proposed and the prepared civil engineering drawings that will be submitted for approval. So to answer his question very briefly, a lot of the grading will be addressed and most of it slopes away from his property. To address anything with regards to excavation, water table, and those matters, we do go through an extensive soil test that is also submitted along with their building permit application. As part of the demolition application, there is a soil study that must be prepared, signed off by a soil engineer, and it basically just assesses the property for the requirements of shoring during excavation to ensure that there's no damage that may come on the neighbor's property from excavation. So all that is being taken into account, and we do have engineer reports for everything, and we will be submitting all those as part of the building permit application to the town. Thank you.
Very well. Has that answered your question, Mr. Kazmala?
Partially, yes, it did. My question is also like with grading the water table. So I'm understanding that if in a case, let's say they will do the testing, so they will know exactly how deep they're gonna go with the foundation of the new proposal, right? So is there any assurance that none of my neighbors and me won't be affected by the water drainage system in the future?
I don't know what kind of assurances we have. Maybe planning can comment. This property is not subject to development engineering permit, right? The ESB, no longer something that is required, right?
Yes, through you, Chair. Drainage is looked at the building permit stage. As you mentioned, as you had mentioned, once a building permit is received, our engineering staff do complete a thorough review of all items received relating to water runoff and drainage.
Okay.
We have
so if there are any items of concerns, the neighbor can always call into the town and express his concerns at that time. I think what we want to do is provide the information for that neighbor, because he's looking for what the assurances are or recourses are that he would not be affected. Barring, of course, that we do trust Mr. Van Kulen to do what he says he's going to do, but I'm just making the comment for the benefit of the neighbor.
Yeah, just to expand
like-
on that, Madam Chair, if you will, if you wish.
Yes.
Through the lot grading approval process with the building permit application, staff in the lot grading department do extensively review our applications for drainage patterns. They look at water runoff, they look at downspout directions, they look at sump pump directions, all of which are assessed to ensure that the water is not directed to the neighboring property. And then furthermore, the drainage pattern beyond those outlets are always assessed and ensure that the direction of that water flow is away from any neighboring properties. And the town of Oakville has been employing soak-away pits as a lot of their stormwater management policies have brought into place soak-away pit designs to manage on-site stormwater management if the water runoff is not desirable to city staff. So all of that comes through the lot grading assessment by city staff.
Very well. Thank you for the clarification and the expansion on the whole process. I think that benefits the neighbors when they do hear that, and it gives them a sense of comfort. Are there any other neighbors that are waiting to speak to the committee, Madam Chair, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There's no one else at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay. Committee members, do you have any questions of any of the neighbors or items of clarification at this time? Madam, Miss Yu?
I have a small question regarding the revision number of the site plan. Can everyone hear me? So the
Yes,
site
we can
plan
hear you.
the site plan in my hands is dated January 21st, 2023. Is that the same information that everyone is getting?
Madam Chair, I've got the same date here, January 21st, 2023.
Okay, yeah, so do I. But I don't think we will be tying those to these plans because the plans are going to be revised for the changes that are have been discussed to make sure that the variances that have been missed are adjusted for, correct? So we will probably be tying this to plans to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, so that when you do submit them, they will be processed and ensured that it's only the variance that we've approved today that has gone through.
Understood.
Is there anything else that you'd like clarification on, Ms. Yu?
That's all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Okay, if there are no further questions or items of clarification, we can take the matter into committee. Who would like to speak to this application? I'll move a motion. I don't see everybody because okay, Mr. Talowski, I had to scroll to see you, so now I see you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm prepared to move that this application be approved this time, but only because I think the changes required to bring this into compliance are minor. But Mr. Van Koolen, it's a veteran here, and I trust the next time he'll have all his variances in order before he comes on the agenda. And Chair, I find that this application meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. Not only do I not believe there'll be an impact, I believe there'll be an improvement to the consistency of the streetscape. I would note 1 letter of support, 2 letters of opposition. Those concerns, Madam Chair, related largely to trees, which, as you're aware, are handled under the tree bylaw. The water table, which has been discussed at length, is reviewed at the building permit process for grading and drainage. And there are also some concerns about massing, but I would note that neither the size or height of the building is a question with these variances. Madam Chair, I'd make that approval subject to 3 conditions: that the dwelling be constructed in general accordance with site plan and elevations to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, that a building permit issues within 2 years or the variance expires, and I will add a 3rd condition that the existing shed be removed, as was indicated by the applicant.
Okay. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I have to scroll to see everybody. I see none. Okay, all those support? Okay, hold on. I see you, Mr. Hardcastle. The application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you, Mr. Van Keulen.
Thank you, everyone.
Application CAV 070 of 2023 at 404 Spruce Street. Again, it's CAV 070 of 2023 at 404 Spruce Street. If there's anyone who's interested in this application, please call 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conferencing.
I've moved John Romanoff into the meeting.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Romanoff. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. If the staff could put up my presentation. John Romanov, architect for the project. Just a quick presentation to show you the intent of our project and also the variances. Perhaps if you could move to page number 4, please. So this slide shows the existing site plan to the top of the sheet and the proposed site plan to the bottom of the sheet. The two variances that we're looking for are flankage setback, which is towards the north, the upper left-hand corner of Spruce Street, and also coverage, which relates to open roof areas that we have extended off of the existing house. So the coverage, we're looking for coverage to 36%. The allowable coverage is 19%. However, there was a variance previously that brought the coverage up to 27%. So in fact, the additional coverage that we're looking for is 9%, which relates wholly to open roof areas. The footprint of the house is shown in the pinkish color at the top of the sheet, or the top sheet, I should say, and the bottom sheet again shows the same area, the pinkish footprint, which is the existing house. The blue area on the sheet, the lower sheet, represents the open roof surface. The flankage setback relates to the roof extension towards Spruce Street. That's highlighted in the left-hand quadrant, circled by the red circle, and then the lower red circle relates to a flankage setback to stairs leading down to the basement. The other circle on the right-hand side just relates to the coverage. Next sheet, please. So this is looking at a comparison of the existing elevations, the north elevation facing Spruce Street on the top, and then the existing east elevation facing Watson on the right-hand side at the top. So the proposed addition or area of coverage shown with the circles. So you can see the roof extension being towards the west, and as well along the frontage facing Spruce. Next sheet, please. Similarly, these elevations also depict the existing and the proposed. Again, the south elevation on the left-hand side of the sheet, existing elevation to the top, proposed to the bottom. Again, the extension of the roof towards the west to the rear yard, and also similarly showing the same roof extension on the west elevation, existing not having that extension, and the lower one showing the roof extension. Next slide, please. These are some renderings that depict the house. So the house itself is not being extended or enlarged. The interior space stays as is. So this shows you the canopy extension that is being proposed. Basically, the idea is to give a walkway along the entire length of the house along Spruce, where you have access from the garage leading to the front entrance, which faces Spruce Street. The front entrance located under that little peaked area that is along the canopy. And then at the rear of the lot, where you have the rear yard on the lower left-hand picture, you see the roof extension going into the rear yard, which allows an eating space off of the rear of the house. Next slide, please. And then this is overall elevation facing onto Spruce Street, the front elevation facing north. You can see the stairwell going down into the basement, just off to the right underneath the roof canopy, with the glass balustrade going around it. And that's the sum of my presentation. If there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Romanov. Are there any items of clarifications or questions at this time? Okay, I see none. Has anyone called in with respect to this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There's no one at this time, Madam Chair.
Mr. Dickey, did you have your hand up? Okay, very well, then we'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Dickey.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Based on my review of the owner's application, site plans and elevations, and my site visit, together with the presentation by the owner's agent and the planning staff's report, and fact that there's been no comments by the neighbors. My opinion that the variance is minor and conforms to the tests under the Planning Act and would have no negative impact on the neighbors. I put forth a motion that the application is applied for be approved, subject to the condition that the porches, awning, and modification to the existing dwelling be constructed in general accordance. Submitted site plan and elevation drawing dated March 28th, 2023. That the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision of the date of this decision if the building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Thank you, Mr. Dick. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in favor? Okay, none opposed. Your application has been approved.
Thank you. Night.
Good night. Okay, application CV 071 of 2023 at 348 Stanfield Drive. Again, this is application CV 071 of 2023 at 348 Stanfield Drive. If you're interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conference. This is the agent, and
If they're interested in speaking to this application, if they could please raise their hand and I can move them into the meeting.
I have Mr. Hani Kalini. Mr. Kalini, if you are present, please raise your hand so that the Secretary Treasurer can invite you to speak.
Yes, I'm just trying to move them into the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, he's, Hani Kalini is in the meeting.
Okay, very well.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Kalini, if you're able to turn your camera on.
I thought this was on. Let me try again one more time.
Okay, we can see you now. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, everyone. This is Hani Kalini. I'm the agent for the variance application for 348 Stanfield Drive.
You can ask staff to move the presentation up or down, should you choose.
Okay, so just a brief introduction to the project. We're proposing to demolish the existing single-story residential, and we're proposing a two-story custom home on the same lot. The new construction we're proposing require 4 variances. One is related to the coverage. One is for an extra height and the additional floor area and additional garage area. Basically, if we were looking at the site stats, for example, the extra coverage we're asking for is about 12 square meter, and that's only there just to allow for the back porch, the covered back porch, which is 19 meter. So just removing the back porch will put this application at the required coverage, and we don't need the application, the variance for the coverage. It's just to cover the back porch, and we all know that the back porch is a 3-sided open construction. It doesn't add to the mass of the building. It's just a back porch. It's not vital to the design. We just add that if we can get it, if that's crucial to the city planner that the coverage is really adding to the massing of the building, we can really drop the back porch from the design and we stay below the maximum required coverage. The second variance was also a minor in the height, which we're only asking for a little over a foot for the height. And that's not because of the area or the garage. We're just asking for the height, although it sounds minimum, but we're just asking for that height to give us some room, some area when we progress the design, that the truss engineers and the grading engineer can have some room to breathe without sticking with a 9-meter height. Just give us a few extra inches that if we need them, we can use them. If we don't need them, we don't use them. I know we can ask our engineers to work a bit harder to stay with the 9-meter, because adding a foot to the height is not also crucial to the size or the massing of the building, and it's not really related to any other variances we're asking for. So those are 2 out of the 4. The main 2 ones are the extra garage area, and the extra area of the garage is a tandem. So it's in the back of the garage, which does not affect the mass of the building. It'll still have 2-door garage. You won't be able to see this from the streetscape when you walk the street. The garage will look the same. It's just the extra area is at the back, and the extra area is an owner request in order for them to allow to park their long boat during winter time in the garage without taking the full driveway. And they have access to use the driveway and the extra car during winter time. So it was a very specific requirement for the owner for this development, is to have that extra depth in the garage. It's not really something we needed to add an extra area to the upper floor. It's just specific request by the owner to suit their custom home, and that's the reason they're building a custom home. Also, the extra area of the garage is not a reason we're adding an area, because if you are looking at the second floor plan, if you can zoom into the second floor plan, over controlling the screen, if you can go to the second floor plan.
The floor plans aren't available. You did not submit a presentation, so the only drawings available are the same ones that are available on the website, which will be the site plan and the elevations.
Oh, I see. Oh, I thought that's part of the application. But if you anyway, if we look at the second floor plan, we're not using the entire area of the garage. We're not building on top of the entire area of the garage. We're building just over the garage area that we're allowed for, and the rest is just it's just a void space in the roof. It's not really adding to the area. So also so that means the extra area, parking area we're asking for has no impact on the overall building area. Or is not a reason we're asking for area, and then we left with the extra square footage we're asking for, which is about 400 square foot. As you can see from, you don't see the plans. It's just an owner requirement for specific room sizes to suit their life needs. And just to give a small brief on, before we did the study, we walked the street and we saw the neighboring house, and we saw that the house just across the street from the house is the exact same match of this design. Actually, we took the design a step forward and we brought the roof line over the garage down. So it creates a smoother transition to the neighboring house. It becomes a single-story roof line over the garage. And if you look at the elevation, front elevation sheet, the next sheet up. Yeah, so as we move the area of the garage, we brought the whole roof line down, so it creates a smoother transition between this house and the neighboring homes. And we also brought the arborist on board very early, and based on his advice, we decided to put the wider setback towards the neighbor to the west, to avoid injuring their trees or asking any of the neighbors that we need to destroy or injure any of their trees or neighboring trees. So I think we've done due diligence going through the neighborhood, talking to the neighbors, and we came with a scheme that we thought it will meet the cityscape and the street line. And I think I can be happy to answer anyone's question.
Mr. Collini, is this your first time in front of the Committee of Adjustment of Oakville?
No, I've been there a few times before.
Okay.
First time online.
First time online. Okay. So you are familiar that you're not really asking us to change any variances. You're just trying to explain them, correct?
Exactly, because when I saw the planner comment, it seems like they group the four as one leads to the other, or they all related to each other, but they are very individual variances.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions of Mr. Collini? Items of clarification, please. Go ahead, Mr. Dickey.
Thank you. Did I understand you right to say about the space above the third parking spot in the garage is open to the second story height, or is it just a one-story part of the building?
It's one story and the roof comes down to cover it. So we're not really using it. It's a void space above the additional garage.
If I was standing outside and looking at it, I would think that was that corner was two-story.
If you look back to the elevation, actually you can see the side elevation sheet.
Oh.
The next sheet up. So you can see that's this is the garage, and you're seeing the whole roof comes down to the first floor's roof line, and the second floor only takes a portion of that height, not the entire area of the garage. Yeah.
Yeah, I see it now. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Same thing with the front elevation as well. If you look at the front elevation, we're far back, and most of the front of the garage is in the roof, is buried into the roof.
Any other questions? Ms. Yu, go ahead.
It looks like it sounds like Mr. Kani mentioned that the engineers and your team can work together to reduce the height to avoid this minor variance. Am I right?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been in a situation before after we did the as-built survey and another house. The peak of the roof came, I think, about 4 or 5 inches above the 9 meter, and we had to come for variances because of that 5 inches. So in this application, I said, let's buy some extra height just to allow us, when we design the roof, the proper slope or roof pitch and the grading plans, we still have room to adjust the house. We may need it, and we may not use it at all. It doesn't really affect the design at all, that extra foot in the height. I mean, if you look at the front elevation, if I take a foot down, the elevation would be the same.
Okay, thank you.
And just extra, sorry, go ahead, Michael.
Go ahead, Mr. Talowski. Are you finished answering Ms. Yu's question? Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Okay,
yes.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Talowski.
Thank you. I'm probably going to get in trouble with the chair for asking Mr. Collini this question, but Mr. Collini, are you sure you don't want to ask for a
I'm going to tell you
deferral?
exactly what Mr. Talowski is saying, because you cut
You've
off.
come before us with variance.
Mr. Talowski, you got cut off.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm having a horrible connection tonight. Mr. Collini, I'm going to ask if you're sure you don't want to ask for a deferral. You've come before us with 4 variances. You've told us you really don't need 2 of them. I believe staff's concern with your garage is more to do with the cumulative variances than that issue itself. It would seem to me that if you sat down with staff, you're probably not that far off from getting a solution that they can support, and that you're not in front of the committee almost negotiating for which variances you need and don't need. So I'm Madam Chair, I'm going to give the applicant, if he chooses to take it, an opportunity at this time to seek a deferral.
I'm okay with that, Mr. Talowski. I see what you're saying, and that's the reason that I asked Mr. Kalini those questions as well.
Please note there is someone in the meeting who'd like to speak to the application.
His best move, but I'll leave it.
Yeah, before we move it or we have a discussion, let's just see who is in the application, who would like to speak to this application.
Okay, there's a John Hendricks in the meeting.
Okay. Mr. Kalini, I just want to explain to you, I think what Mr. Tlowski is trying to say is whether you need them or not, because this application is as it is before us with those variances, we have one of two ways to proceed. Either you take a deferral and you make the adjustments that you know you're going to need, or we proceed with the application as is, because as it is already, you can't remove anything without affecting anything as part of a negotiation.
Sorry,
which
you
is
cut off for a few seconds.
okay. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I think what did you hear what I said about Mr. Tlowski? I think
Yes, I
what we're trying to, yeah. So if we don't proceed with the application as it is with the 4 variances, it's going to be very difficult to remove anything or negotiate on it and not tie it to proper drawings, which we are not in the habit of doing. And because these are significant variances that will affect your plans as submitted, okay? So that's why Mr. Tlowski is saying you should consider taking the deferral and working with staff and meeting them somewhere in the middle and assessing whether really you do need all 4 variances or you'll be happy to remove a couple as you has explained so clearly to us.
Okay.
So think about that. Think about that while I take the party that is in waiting.
Right. Let's see what's done.
Yeah. Who is waiting to speak to the committee?
John Hendricks.
Mr. Hendricks, good evening. You may have to unmute yourself. If you're on a phone, then you have to press *6, I believe,
now,
to unmute
sorry.
yourself.
I pressed
Okay,
star
now we
6.
can hear you.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak. It is John Henderson, Henderson, and I'm at the neighboring property 354 Stanfield Drive. I appreciate very much that the existing drawings show a good setback or maintaining the boundary, and that the real issues pertain to my neighbor to the south with the garage issues. So generally, I just wanted to say I support the committee and the town planning's recommendations that some of the characters here were not in keeping with the neighborhood. So I support the report that was submitted by the Committee of Adjustment and the staff report. But I wanted to say, in generally, I try to support my neighbors with their suggested variances. I do note that I spoke previously at the town council for 372 Stanfield, a new owner who came to build what was to be his family dream home. And it really is a nice home. But what was interesting is as soon as it was built, it was flipped and resold. So what people sometimes say, things change, but I was expecting a new neighbor and that didn't materialize. But we have some interesting developments on the street. So I really just wanted to say I support the, I think it's a good move to go back to the town and work with the variances.
Okay, thank you for your submission, sir.
And could I just make one comment?
Sure, go ahead.
That's good. I just wanted to make sure that whatever variances get approved, that my property, if I wanted to do a redevelopment, that similar variances would be allowed. That the variances that get approved don't mitigate similar variances on a neighboring property.
Oh, well, that I can comment on, that we do take every application on its own merit, and there's not really a lot of precedent, although many people will come back to the Committee of Adjustment with evidence of similar developments. And we do take that into account to a certain extent in terms of how it affects the neighborhood and the streetscape and all of that. But we do try our very best to take each application on its merit and the overall development as it applies to where it's being developed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for your clarity.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Henderson. So, Mr. Kalini, you've been given an opportunity for a reprieve.
Yeah.
And what's the verdict?
Verdict is I'll take the chance and go meet with the city. I just need to know the process. How do we contact and who to contact, and if you can get us
for the deferral, if we approve the deferral at this point, there is going to be a fee attached to the deferral. It's $800 and something, and then you'll speak to the planning staff, and once you are ready to submit new drawings, the Secretary Treasurer will put you on the next available agenda once you are ready with your adjusted application, basically.
Oh, I see. So we don't need to meet specific team member in the planning department.
No, you should. At this point, it would be Ms. McKnight. Ms. Riley, you were the planner on this application, correct? So you would contact Ms. McKnight and have a sit down and speak with her, and come back to us with an amended application.
I see. Okay, got it.
You know, after speaking to her, you may not come back to us at all. I mean, that's another situation too. You may comply with everything. It really depends on the conversation and what your client really wants and what they would like to drop from these variances that are before us today.
Understood.
Are you okay with that? Are you formally requesting the deferral?
I'm formally requesting the deferral.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Very well.
Okay.
Very well. All those in support of Mr. Kalini's deferral? Okay, your application has been deferred, none opposed, and then once you're ready, you'll see the Secretary Treasurer and she'll put you on the next available agenda.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay. Application CAV 072 of 2372 Foxhole Circle. Again, it's CAV 072 of 2023 at 2372 Foxhole Circle. If you are interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conferencing.
I've moved Mandy Dorsey into the meeting.
Thank you. Oh.
Hello?
Good evening, Ms. Moore. Ms.
Mr.
Dorsey, good evening.
Yes, I'm trying to turn on my camera, but it doesn't seem to be working. I apologize.
That's okay. If you're on a laptop, I think it's Mr. Hardcastle. Bottom right or bottom left? I always forget. Bottom left. If you're on a laptop, it's bottom left.
It says I'm sharing. I have a stop video, but for some reason, let me just see if I have. There we go. Okay.
Ah, there you
Apologies.
go. We've
Thank
got you now.
There I am. Okay.
You're very welcome.
I don't have a presentation, but I wanted to join if there's any request for clarification or questions. I am the homeowner of the property.
Okay, very well. Are there any questions? I got booted out of the system, so I'm trying to reboot in. Are there any questions in the meantime of Ms. Dorsey? This application is for a location of pool equipment on the subject property and to permit the maximum encroachment in the rear yard for the heat pumps, the swimming pool pumps, the filters, as per the submitted application.
And just to clarify, all the pumps and all the equipment is within the required setback. It's just the gas pipe and the water line that is actually, yes.
And we do see the pictures and through the site visits, that's clear. Are there any questions or items of clarification of Ms. Dorsey at this time? Mr. Hardcastle, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is perhaps a question of staff. I just noted in one of the photographs the location of the downspout for the shed going into the reduced yard setback. Has this been reviewed by staff, technical staff, and any concerns with respect to this?
Yes, thank you.
Ms. McKnight. Yeah.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, zoning did not raise any concerns with this. We do run all minor variance applications through our engineering team as well as our zoning team, and there were no flags raised with regards to this item.
Any other questions or items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Who would like to move a motion if no one has called in for this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There's no one at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, very well. Ready. Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit, having reviewed the materials, including the written staff report, I am satisfied that the requested variance conforms to the four tests of the Act. Accordingly, I'll put forward a motion of approval with no conditions, noting that there were no members of the public present with respect to this matter.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there discussion on this recommendation? See none, all those in support? Okay, your application has been approved. Ms. Dorsey, have a good evening. None opposed.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Application CAV 025 of 2023 at 221 Wooddale Avenue. Again, it's CAV 025 of 2023 at 221 Wooddale Avenue. And that was deferred from March the 8th of 2023. If there's anyone interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095. I have Miss Lindsay Bruce as the listed agent.
I've moved Lindsay Bruce in, but it could be Joel Tanner. Tricking us.
Hey, Mr. Tanner.
Evening,
You're
Madam
always
Chair, members of the
playing
committee.
these tricks on us. Why are you signing in with Miss Bruce's identity?
I apologize.
Okay, go ahead.
Awesome. So we do have a revised presentation. We were in front of the board back on March 8th, but we did have a deferral due to some concerns, not with neighbors, but with staff. So if we just pop to the next page here on the presentation. So this is the revised modification plan where we looked at removal of living space under the rear patio to reduce the lot coverage as requested by the city. We also removed a portion of the rear roof canopy to bring down the overall massing on the rear facade of the home. And then the final item was a removal of a detached shed in order to bring the lot coverage calculations down. Next slide, please. This is the existing one-story dwelling that is on the property and has existed since the 50s. Next slide, please. This is the proposed two-story dwelling with an attached two-car garage on the right-hand side, entry on the left-hand side, as well as a rear covered patio. Next slide, please. So first variance up is the calculation for a garage. So we are allowed 45 square meters in the area. We are requesting 55.68. That's to accommodate some additional storage for bikes and whatnot. So it's not a true tandem garage. It's really just for attached storage. Next slide, please. Second variance is with regards to the overall floor area ratio for the home. So we are allowed a total of 41% based on the lot size, and we are sitting at a 42.23 ratio. So 1.23 over what is the allowed. The second floor is stepped back quite considerably from that front elevation main floor facade. We always try to accommodate a bit of a tailed massing in order to really blend in with the streetscape and ensure that we're not completely dominating the facade, as not every single home on the street is brand new and full two-story. The additional second floor living space, we've got a little bit that's also floating over what is a rear covered canopy. So half of the rear canopy is covered by house, and then half is an open air structure. Next slide, please. Third and final variance is related to overall lot coverage. Allowable in this area is a calculated 35% based on the lot size, and we are seeking a 2.61% increase to 37.61. We were in our prior application for the March 8th hearing, we were sitting at 44, so pretty substantial reduction based on discussions with town staff. Happy to answer any questions or clarifications anybody is seeking. Thanks so much, committee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tanner. Questions, items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Has anyone called in for this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There's no one at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, very well. I'm ready to entertain a motion. Go ahead, Miss Yu. Did I see your hand go up?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Thank you,
I'm
Madam
sorry,
Chair.
Mr. Dickey, she beat you to it.
Yeah, finally.
You can have the next one.
Yeah, finally. Thank you. Having reviewed the materials, including the application materials, documents, and the staff report, and having completed a site visit, I'm satisfied that the proposed minor variances meet the board test. As such, I would like to put a motion forward to approve this proposal with two conditions. One, that the two-story detached dwelling will be constructed in general accordance with the plans dated April 28th, 2023, as submitted. Condition number two, that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision of a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction. Thank you.
Very well, thank you, Ms. Yu. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? The application has been approved, none opposed.
Thanks so much, committee. Have a great evening.
Have a good evening. Okay. CAB 037 of 2023 at 194 Front Street. Again, this is CAB 037 of 2023 at 194 Front Street, deferred from March the 22nd of 2023. If you're interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095. And I do have 15 letters of support for this application from Mr. Mark and Sarah Rochton. Sorry, I botched that completely. Petra and Mark Reines, Julian Novick and Lindsay Goldstein, Jeff Morris, Grace Kidney, Sarita Piltoma and Arthur Piltoma, Mr. Jelnick and Mrs. Jelnick, Kurt S. Cumming, Jennifer and Ken Cross, and Ross McTavish, Sharon Armont, Michael Trinoff, and Catherine Hurley. I hope I got everyone's spelling and pronunciation right. Who is the agent for this application?
It's myself. Andrew
Mr.
Coppell,
Coppell, how are you?
Yes, I'm good. How are
Can
you?
you please put your camera on?
I apologize.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Excellent. Thank you for the opportunity to address the panel. By way of background, we'd previously been before you regarding 3 of the 4 minor variances you see tonight, of which 3 all received staff support. So the staff did raise in their previous report for the March 22nd meeting that we last attended that a minor variance may be needed as to lot setback, which you might recall we argued was not necessary because it was a pre-existing legal non-conforming use. In the end, your recommendation was to defer and to seek the setback variance, which we've done, and as to which the staff did not object. So in short, now we're seeking 4 minor variances, including the one previously that you recommended we seek, all of which have received no objection in the minor variance report. One thing you should note, you might note that the minor variance report proposal on the second last page of the report only refers to 3 minor variances. That's been corrected in the addendum 1 to the comments, which has the correct 4 minor variances. The owner has spoken to the neighbors. We have heard no objection and have provided for your review 15 letters of support from 11 different addresses. So we now seek this panel's support for the minor variances consistent with the staff's recommendation. And specifically, we're looking for those minor variances in addendum 1, which are to permit a minor rear yard of 7.343 meters, to permit a minimum front yard of 2.38 meters, to permit the maximum lot coverage to be 35.47%, and to permit the maximum residential floor area ratio to be 30.16%, all consistent with the staff's report.
Okay.
Please answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Coppell. Any items of clarifications or questions at this time? I see none. Madam Secretary Treasurer, I'm assuming no one has called in for this application given the 15 letters of support.
I have no one at this time, Madam Chair.
Very well, then we'll go ahead and take a motion, and you're up, Mr. Dickey.
Based on my review of the plan submitted by the owners and the presentation, having regard to the presentation made by the agent and my site visit, together with the planning staff's report, the neighbors' numerous letters of support and their comments, my opinion that the variance is minor and conforms to the tests on the Planning Act and would have no negative impact on the neighbors. So I put forth a motion that the application of the site will be approved, subject to the condition that the additions be constructed in general accordance with the final approved heritage permit, the satisfaction of the Director of Planning Services. The approval expires 2 years from the date the decision of the building permit is not being issued, the proposed construction, and that the issuance of the major heritage permit proposed dwelling to be to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning Services.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dickey. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay. Mr. Talowski, are you frozen or are you in opposition? I think he's frozen. You're frozen. Are you in support?
Yes.
Okay. Application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay. Application CAV 040 of 2023 at 1163 Lynbrook Road. Again, it's application CAV 40 of 2023 at 1163 Lynbrook Road. I have Ms. Stephanie Medviva as the listed agent.
If they could please raise their hand so I can move them into the meeting.
Good evening. Good evening, Ms. Medviva.
Perfect. Thank you. So for the public record, my name is Stephanie Matviva. I am an associate with Glenn Schnarr and Associates. The address of Glenn Schnarr is 10 Kingsbridge Garden Circle in Mississauga, registered agent on behalf of the owner. So the property before us tonight is for the site municipally addressed as 1163 Limbrook Road. If I could have the next slide, please. So the property is located on the north side of Limbrook Road. It's located within an established residential neighborhood that can be understood as having the eclectic neighborhood character. There's a diversity of built form sizes, and architectural styles. The property before us tonight does have a unique lot fabric in that it is a larger lot. It's also immediately backing onto a public park. If I could have the next slide, please. So this is a revised application. There was a previous application before the committee earlier this year. In collaboration, with town staff and in response to some neighboring concerns, a revised proposal has been prepared. The revised proposal before us tonight triggers 3 variances. So that is for an increased total private garage floor area of 81.75 square meters, an increased dwelling depth of 29.82 meters, and an increased maximum front yard of 18.35 meters. If I could have the next slide, please. So just a few things to highlight. The proposed private garage area has been situated along the, technically, the eastern side yard. So the garage area itself is imperceptible from the streetscape. That's allowed the built form to maintain compatibility and consistency with the established neighborhood character. The requested building depth is partly a technicality in nature. So it is measured from the perimeter of the rear covered porch to the perimeter of the front covered porch. And this is just the way that the town's bylaw requires it to be, but this does give rise to instances where the proposed building depth is slightly elevated. The requested building depth is proportional to the lot. It provides for a built form that still continues to respect the neighborhood character. It's also within range of previous approvals and existing built form patterns. These are all outlined in the submission letter that was provided with the application. And finally, the requested maximum increase to the maximum front yard setback is actually an improvement over the existing condition of the lot. So it provides for the built form to be positioned in a way that is more compatible and more consistent with built forms that are along the Limbrook Road streetscape. Again, this provides for the neighborhood character to be respected and for a compatible built form to be provided. I'd also like to highlight great efforts were made, and the guiding principle of the design was to be respectful of the established neighborhood character, understanding this area is transitioning. There is an interesting mix of historical and newer built forms. I'd also highlight that there's quite a large number of neighborhood support. There are a number of signed letters of support provided with the application, as well as a map. So in total, there are 16 property owners that are willing to support the application, both this revised application and actually the previous application before us. If I could have the next slide, please. So just very quickly, this is the proposed front elevation. So the proposed dwelling features a variation of built form and undulations to break up the visual appearance of mass and scale. There is living space that has been integrated into the roof line as well as the front covered porch. These are noted design features of other homes within the surrounding area. If I could have the next slide, please. So quickly, this is the proposed rear elevation. So again, it features undulations. It provides for a variety of built form features, all of which are compatible with the neighborhood area. If I could have the next slide, please. And again, just quickly, these are the proposed side elevations. The one on the top right would be the side elevation if you were looking on the western side. So this would not be on the side opposite of where the private garage is to be proposed. And the image on the bottom left is the right side, or the east side yard setback. So there is the 3-car garage that's proposed. Again, it is visually screened by part of the built form. And again, this provides for a compatible built form that respects and reinforces the neighborhood character. So as outlined in the submission letter provided with this application, it is my opinion that the proposed development as contemplated before us tonight meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act. I'm happy to answer any questions that there may be.
Any questions or items of clarifications of Ms. Medviva at this time?
Can I just clarify? Sorry, can I just clarify? So the 16 letters of support were sent in with this revised submission?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, they were.
I apologize, I didn't see them. Any new 16 letters with the deferral? I do apologize. Ms. Medviva is saying there's 16 letters of support on file.
Okay. All right. Anything further of Ms. Medviva? Has anyone called with respect to this application?
If you can ask
Madam
anybody
Secretary Treasurer?
if you can ask if someone would want to raise their hand and I can move them into the meeting.
Okay. Anyone interested in speaking in this application, please raise your hand and the Secretary Treasurer will invite you to speak. Okay, if no one has raised their hand and interested in speaking.
I just want to make sure there was, somebody was trying to submit their concerns. I guess it was last night, so technically it was received today. And they wanted then to attend the meeting. Now I do see the person in the meeting. I'm not sure whether they're not sure how to raise their hand. I just don't want to move them into the meeting if they're choosing not to speak. What would you like me to do, Madam Chair? I can move them into the meeting, but their hand has not been raised, so we don't usually move anybody into the meeting in case they've decided that they don't want to speak.
I would just give them a minute. If you're, again, interested in speaking and you would like to address this application, please raise your hand in order for you to be invited into the panel. If not, and you choose not to speak and you've been satisfied through the presentation, then we will take your silence as such. Madam Secretary Treasurer, are we ready to move on?
Well, there's no hand raised, so I'm unable to move them into the meeting. Okay.
That's fine. I've given them a chance and we are wrapping up our meeting, so they have been given ample time to step in. If there are no questions, we'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Talowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, always pleased to see when an applicant takes the time to work things out with staff. Having said that, I move this application be approved as applied for, finding it meets the test of the Planning Act. I would note that there's no objections raised and that the variances being sought either will improve or not have an impact on the streetscape, in my opinion. I would make that approval subject to the dwelling being constructed in general accordance with the site plan and elevation drawings dated March 29th, 2023, and that the approval expires in 2 years if the building permit has not been issued.
And I just want it noted there above the 16 letters of support.
Okay. "16 letters of support have been duly noted." Any discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you, Ms. Medviva.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good night. Okay, we have minutes to confirm for May 17th. Who would like to move the minutes? Mr. Hardcastle, thank you. And motion to adjourn. Don't let me down now, Mr. Hardcastle. At 8:41, we are adjourned. Thank you.